Okay, let's take a walk around under the GTR's hood. On my left at the front we have one airbox, and on the other side another. You'll notice they're slightly different in shape. This one has a flatter arrangement of ribs compared to this one. The importance of that is that when the airflow goes through the airbox into this sensor here, which is the MAF sensor, mass airflow meter, and on the other side this one here, although the sensors are identical and the filters on each side are identical, because the boxes are a different shape, the MAF calibrations are different on each side, which is what you see in the tuning software. Also, you can notice that on my right side here, this sensor has 3 wires, and on my left, I'll just find the wires to show you, this one has 5, because this one on my left also has an inlet air temperature sensor. This is the only air temperature sensor relevant to the engine management on the GTR. Now, moving down further, you can see this ribbed hose here, and then it goes out of sight down into the compressor inlet of your turbo. Same on the other side. Ribbed hose going down into your turbo. From there, on each side of the engine, the compressed air comes forward into the intercoolers. Let's just have a look at those. Here we go. And you can see that there's a gap between the two intercoolers. So the standard GTR intercoolers take the air that's coming from one side of the engine, gone through the turbo, goes into the intercooler, and then comes back out on the same side of the engine bay up this pipe here. This is the most obvious pipe you see coming into the sides of the engine here. Now, there's some interesting bits and pieces on this pipe. Looking at the front here, we've got the bypass valve. Some people call them blow-off valves, some people like to call them bypass valves, because on a standard OEM car like this one, they recirculate compressed air back into the turbo inlet. This usually happens when you lift off the throttle up here. We'll come back to that in a minute. And then you'd have a load of trapped air in this whole area at great pressure that's got nowhere to go, and your turbo would stall. So this valve here opens, helped by a signal here that comes from the inlet manifold, and rather than wasting the air to the atmosphere, it recirculates this air through this pipe here back into your inlet, which you can just see down here. That's before it goes back into the turbo. So the idea is, this mass airflow meter that we were talking about earlier on the way in measures air as it comes in, and then it doesn't get leaked out. It either goes into the engine or it gets recirculated in this whole inlet system. So there's preservation of mass, if you like. Okay, a couple of other sensors on, again, my right. The top of this inlet pipe is one of the turbo boost pressure sensors. This is before the throttle. So this can read higher, especially on part throttle, than a sensor that's further in on the inlet manifold. So there are 2 of these, one on each side of the engine. That's this one. And the other one here. You'll notice they've both got 3 wires. They've usually got 5 volts ground and then the sensor signal. These sensors, just like the third boost pressure sensor, which is on the inlet manifold, which I'm struggling to show you without falling over, is that they all read up to about 25 psi. After that, they'll just read a flat line. So if you want to control closed loop your boost above that, you'd need to upgrade these sensors, and we have tables for that in the software, although nobody's been brave enough to test them seriously yet. Right, moving on. Staying on the same side here, we have the whole throttle body complex here. In there you've got a motor which sets the position of the throttle, and the engine computer decides, based on the position of the driver's foot on the accelerator pedal, how much to open and close this. You'll also notice from driving and from your data logs that the engine computer, in cooperation with a VDC, that's the traction control, will close this throttle on you especially if you're in the normal mode and it's wet. If you're in the R mode, it gives you a bit more slip, and if you're in VDC off, it'll just let you have whatever you want, which some people think is good and I think is sometimes a bit scary. But then that's why I don't tune my car further than about 570. That's at the flywheel, by the way, for you Americans. Alright, moving on. Worth looking here at the inlet manifold. I'm going to come back a bit so you can see it. So you've got these 3 pipes on each side bending down into the engine. Now, I was talking earlier about all the air staying on one side, so you're coming in through your airbox, through your mass sensor, through your turbo, through your intercooler, back up this pipe here. We're all staying on one side of the engine. Same on this side. But what happens here is the pipes actually cross, so you can see if we go over the top here and I don't fall over. Fuel pressure regulator coming into view just here. These cross over on the top of the engine, so the pipes from the left point towards and go into the right, and the pipes from the right point towards and go into the left. You can see that happens with all 6 cylinders there. Underneath here, as well as the fuel pressure regulator we just pointed out, you've got the fuel rail, and again on the other side. Okay, also around the back, which I may struggle to show you, let's see if we can see it. There is a crossover pipe, and that links both sides of the inlet manifold to equalise the pressure. You can see it here from this angle as well.